Hello. I'm Ellen Dunham-Jones, Professor and Coordinator of the Master of Science in Urban Design here at Georgia Tech. I'd like to welcome you to our virtual open house. I'm really sorry that you can't be here in person to meet everyone, tour the campus, learn more, and experience Atlanta. But I hope you'll check out the videos that we've posted to YouTube and Youku. They'll give you a little bit of a sense of what the place is like. Instead, we're going to focus today a lot more really on the program itself. We're passionate about the power of urban design to shape our lives, our society, our economy, and our ecology. With that power comes a simultaneous need for bold imaginations, creative collaborators, pragmatists, community builders, and a deep knowledge of cities. And that's what we try to prepare you for. So I'm going to switch to a PowerPoint now and show you some slides. So in the next hour, and you're switching us to PowerPoint? All right. So in the next hour, we'll demonstrate how the curriculum, the studio work, and our alumni are exercising the power of urban design. We've built in time for questions, so feel free to write down a question in the chat box on the upper right of your screen. So, the MSUD, the story of the MSUD begins here in our really great studio space. The fall and spring semester studios are really the core of the curriculum. Each student gets a dedicated desk surrounded by shared computer labs. In reality, it's a lot messier than it looks in this particular super clean photo, but it's really conducive to collaboration. And that's important because designing cities takes a lot of different disciplines. So our typical urban design studio combines planners, architects, urban designers, and then we have the class of students includes landscape architects. We try to get some engineers in there as well, and we have fantastic collaborators all across campus. The curriculum is really, it's a 3-semester curriculum, and you'll take studio in fall and spring, and then take some required courses as well as electives, and then the summer I'll get to in a minute. So in the fall, typically the studio is the Georgia Conservancy Studio with a real focus on ecological infrastructure. I'll show an example in a minute. Then you also, in the fall, you take history of urban form to learn and understand how cities have evolved, how urban design and the planning and the infrastructure and the politics, have all combined to create some of the great cities that we know and love. You also will take theories of urban design, where we do a lot of reading. From great authors like Jane Jacobs to Rem Koolhaas, and plenty of folks in between. You also get a choice of electives, and there's loads to choose from site planning to GIS to any number of courses. In the spring, again, you take studio, and typically it's the retrofitting suburbia studio, where it's about redevelopment of existing places that are that much more automobile-oriented into more sustainable places. And we really dive into the real estate dynamics and transportation issues. At the same time, you'll be taking a required course in real estate finance, as well as in growth management law. Those are both in our top-ranked city planning program and provide a fabulous basis to really understand how cities are built. In addition, you get another elective. And then this summer, we strongly encourage students to go away. we ask you to take the Modern Architecture, Modern City, European Travel Study Tour, and talk about that a little bit more in a minute. If you choose not to, because it does come with an extra fee to do all of that travel, if you choose not to go to Europe, you can remain and do an independent study in Atlanta, and we strongly, strongly recommend that we try to hold those to a standard of being publishable works. And we've got a good track record. In addition, one more elective. So lots of choices. of what to do. So again, showing the Georgia Conservancy studio, as I said, here's just a little bit of it, some images give you a little sense of the kinds of work that often that studio really helps you understand issues of stormwater, issues of drainage, topography, could be, sometimes it might deal with sea level rise. You know, the idea is to really help you understand how the natural systems influence urban form. And those studios almost always involve collaboration with local underserved communities. So you get experience really going out and working with directly in real situations. Then the retrofitting suburbia studio, as I said, is that much more about how do we integrate the human-made systems of understanding real estate markets, understanding how different transportation choices influence urban design and cities. So we also every year engage in the ULI competition. Urban Land Institute has an annual real estate development and design student competition, and we have a really good track record. Then, as I said, the summer is when we want you to get out and experience really great cities and places. Great urban designers actually have immerse themselves and understand what makes cities work or not work. So the Modern Architecture, Modern City is a 9-week program. You spend approximately 2 weeks in Barcelona, Paris, Berlin, Copenhagen, and Holland, being led by great faculty who really know just where to take you and show you around. Now, our faculty also are engaged in a lot of research. This is just some of the books and publications that our faculty, our urban design faculty, have come out with. As I said, we really have a top-ranked city planning program as well as the architecture program, and urban design pulls on everybody. We also, another opportunity in the research, an important aspect of our research program is the Sino-US Eco-Urban Lab. This is run by Professor Perry Yang, and it's located both at Georgia Tech and at Tongji University in Shanghai. Shanghai obviously shown in this image. So the work of the lab is engaged in developing the tools to actually measure urban ecological performance, and then beginning to construct the kind of benchmarks and data that allows us to compare different cities and really understand how they're doing on everything from carbon footprints, energy usage, different street networks and block layouts, and solar access, water harvesting, sky view, lots and lots of different interesting measures. I'm going to close with this slide of student work because ultimately, again, the student work is really what we're most proud of and what we look forward to working with you on. This is this year's entry ULI competition. One of them made it to finalists. This is their entry. Another got honorable mention. It's worth saying, I mean, that, we're really proud of the fact that in the last 5 years, we've had 8 placements in international competitions. So we think we're doing a pretty good job. So with that, I want to invite you to ask questions, and I'm going to bring up Robin Tucker, who is our academic advisor, and I always defer all the questions to Robin that have to do with curriculum, financial aid, visa logistics, housing. So invite you to post any questions into chat, or else I'm just going to turn it over to Robin.
You will begin working with me almost from the moment you're accepted to Georgia Tech. I will help you with details to get your visa for your travel here to the U.S. if you're an international student. I will also assist you with housing details, guide you a little bit in how you can locate housing inexpensively here. Most of our students live in the Graduate Living Center, or they find students many times if they're international from their own countries, and they're more comfortable living with them, or they may already be a living situation that you can join. As far as financial aid and funding your education here at Tech, we do have limited access to a few graduate fellowships. The Charles Brown Fellowship is one that we typically award to one or more MSUD students coming in. It is not full funding, but it is a piece of funding that will assist you with your studies while you're at Georgia Tech. In order to receive your I-20, I will need several things from you, and we'll talk about that more when you're accepted, but I'll give you a quick list. I will need a photo page of your passport. I will need bank documents that show as much as 1 year's support, which is roughly $47,000 in liquid funds. This can be a combination of bank accounts. It can be one bank account from another supporter, and if you use a bank account other than your own, you'll need a letter of support from the person who owns that account. I will work with you to get your I-20 to you in a timely fashion so that you can get your visa from whichever country you may be traveling to us from. For housing, as soon as you're accepted to the Institute and you've accepted our offer of admission, you will receive information from different arms of the Institute, one being housing. They will assist you with appropriate arrival time, because you will need to leave the semester a few days or as much as a week in order to complete details that can only be done once you're here in the U.S., such as immunizations that are required here that may not be required in your home country. I'm going to stop talking and see if anyone has questions about anything I've talked about or about anything that Ellen has presented previously.
So please, add any questions that you might have. I want to just reiterate on the financial side, this last Friday, we had our annual career fair, and it was the most crowded ever. Okay, so business is jumping in Atlanta right now. I think certainly this year there are lots of opportunities for internships. So even if you don't receive financial aid, but if you're interested, there are a lot of internship opportunities. And now I see that a question has come in on what are the job opportunities for international students when asked upon graduation. And so we are going to have Professor Richard Dagenhart is going to present a slide showing up what a lot of our students, our alumni are working in and what kinds of jobs they're having. It is true, there is no accreditation for urban design. Urban design is not a licensed profession in that sense. But I think you'll find that, there's our students, our alums have not had any problems finding jobs. They're often trying to decide between what kind of job they want to get. And I think there are some pretty big differences. There are opportunities to work for municipalities. So most of our alums go into consulting. Richard Dagenhart will talk about that in more detail in just a few minutes. Any other questions? All right, please feel free again, store up some more questions, but why don't we switch now to Animesh Shrestha is a current student in the MSUD, and Animesh will talk a little bit about the student work that he sees and talk about from a student's perspective.
Hi everyone, my name is Shrestha and I'm a student here at Georgia Tech. I'm studying urban design here, and wow, really, the urban design here, it's really exciting. I've learned so many things here while studying urban design. So in this presentation, I'll be talking about what I have been doing in my previous semester and also this semester. So in this semester, I'm taking the retrofitting suburbia studio, which is a studio regarding how cities can be better by utilizing the parking spaces available there, by how to convert their parking spaces into more usable spaces. So in this studio, our site is downtown Atlanta itself. So we are having a vision of downtown Atlanta in 2041. So for this, we collected master plans from different variety of places and just combined it in one file. So this is the result of the combination of all master plans that are going around downtown Atlanta. And we just, in this stage, we're just doing research about what is actually in the site and what can be done. So in this phase, we're just researching about the process, and then we're slowly going into the design phase. We also checked what is the best street network, which has the best connectivity using different programs like space syntax. And also in the studio, we are mainly focusing on driverless cars and how driverless cars they can affect the future of the city. So in this studio, we are focusing on different scenarios, such as the Uber scenario, where the city will have driverless cars and which will be acting like Ubers. And also there is the Tesla scenario, which will also have driverless buses. So till now we are we have planned different toolkits that will help for the design. So this is an example of the toolkit. So this shows how the street is now and how it can be in the future, and also rendering how it can look like in the future. So in the previous studio, we did an eco-city design for Zhongming Island. So this was one of my best studios that I have ever did, because I get to learn so many things about different cities and how a city should look like. So this is the Zhongming Island in Shanghai, China, and there is a proposed site. This is the existing site that we have taken. And for the concept, and this is the conceptual diagram. So we have divided our site into 3 different neighborhoods, and the main thing the main concept of our design is to purify the existing water and use that existing water into the existing building. So this diagram shows how the water is being purified, and also the street networks, and also the transit system that we are providing in design. This is the rendering of the aerial view, the urban leisure district, the rendering of the Central Park, which so that people they can enjoy the Central Park and also enjoy the pure water that is flowing around the city. And this is also the same project, but by a different group. So they have a different concept, that is to have different squares of neighborhood with different activities, such as in harvesting a square and a square using a biofuels, and there will be another square that uses on a living machine. So this is the conceptual master plan of different square with different goals and different backgrounds. This is the master plan. So this is the example of a typical neighborhood. And they have also tried to design the water management, how to use the water efficiently. So this diagram shows how the gray water from buildings we can purify it using different biofuels, and also use the same water in retention ponds, and use the same water for vegetation and gardening. And since Zhongming Island is an island for farming, so we also focus on the farming of the island, and try to use the retention water and use the same water for farming and for gardening. So this diagram shows how we are using the water for farming and gardening. This is one of the renderings, and also how the biofuels, we can use the biofuels to filter the water and purify the water in the city area. So also there are also different courses that LNC has mentioned before, but I'll also talk about some more elective courses such as GIS, which is like very important for getting different maps and data for any cities. There's also elective course called Space Syntax, where you can figure out what is the best street with the best connection. So I really found this space syntax course very interesting. And there's also a course called Climate Change, Introduction to Climate Change, where you will get ideas about how climate change is affecting the cities and how we can improve the change in the climate, and how we can design a city which sustains a better climate change. And also there are the other core courses which Alan has already talked about before. So if you have any questions about what a student will be doing in the studios, or what courses they will be taking, please feel free to ask any questions that you have.
And can you switch up to the questions? The live and then come back and sit. So yeah, any questions for Animesh to talk about life as a student and the student experience? Animesh, tell us a little bit about yourself. You came to Georgia Tech. This was a pretty new experience for you.
I am from Nepal, and before coming to Georgia Tech, I was like very confused, like which college to go, and I applied at different university. But I did research of few university and found that Georgia Tech is one of the best universities to study urban design, and also it is the best university because it's in Atlanta, which is one of the developing cities. So it has like different opportunities, because there are very large and small constructions that are going in the city. So there are different good urban spaces in Atlanta itself. In Georgia Tech itself, there's very good examples of architecture and urban design. There's also the Clough Building, which is one of the best example of sustainable architecture. So we have a question from Sindhuza. Are all design studio group work? Mostly till now, what we do in design studio is that for the research phase and for the case study phase, sometimes it will be a single student work, sometimes it can be a group work, but most of the final presentation and final work we do as a group, because in reality also the design and everything, it actually works in the group. In the professional field also. So in the studio we get we get an idea of how to actually work in a group. So I think it's a good idea that we should do studios in a work which will help in the professional field. So yes, we do all the design studios mostly in group.
So also the question was whether the summer semester categorizes as thesis. Now I'd say there is an independent study component both in the modern architecture, modern city, but also it's one does 6 credits, which is double the normal course load for the independent study in the summer if you stay in Atlanta. So it really is the equivalent of a thesis, although we see it's more as a research thesis than a design thesis. So the idea really is in that last semester for you to experience a place, document a place, and it is I would very much call it a research thesis. All right. If there aren't any more questions, Animesh is still here, and you can reach all of us with more questions. We're going to switch over to Richard Dagenhart. We'll talk about what our alumni are up to.
Hi, I'm Richard Dagenhart, and I thought what we would do is walk through some of the jobs and projects that recent graduates have been doing. It spans the range of all kinds of work, from academic work. Sometimes students do PhD programs, They do private consulting, international consulting, work for nonprofit groups, work for neighborhood organizations, go back to home countries and work in various capacities there. So I will just go through a few examples of what people are doing. First, in private consulting firms, small ones to big ones. Cassie Brown is famous here for doing graduating from every degree we offer. Master of City Planning, Master of Architecture, and Master of Urban Design. She is now working at Perkins & Will in Atlanta, which is one of two centers of Perkins & Will urban design operations with about 10 people here in Atlanta. And Perkins & Will keeps hiring our graduates and providing internships to both domestic and foreign students during the year and during the summers. This one, Yigong started out working with Perkins & Will and is now with Perkins & Will in London with one of the former faculty members here in the urban design program, who is now the lead urban design partner for the Western Hemisphere. And she is working there and has been there now for about a year. Stephen Conchester graduated a long time ago, back in 2008, went to work for the Smith Group in Washington, D.C., and now is with another consulting operation that does both real estate finance and other advanced planning work. Very interesting firm that does all kinds of things. He's now a project manager, dealing with infrastructure and projecting needs for infrastructure and other major projects across the country. Scott D'Agostino is another one of our graduates. He came in as a landscape architect. There are different routes and a variety of people that come into the Master of Urban Design program. Most are architects, some are city planners, and some are landscape architects. And one of the advantages in studios is the ability to collaborate across disciplines. Frequently in college, you're stuck either in architecture studios or landscape studios or city planning studios. The urban design program are all mixed together and working on teams together. So you really begin to learn to speak the language and operate across disciplines. Scott graduated, he worked in a couple places and then taught for a while at Louisiana State University in a landscape program, and now is back working in landscape architecture, urban design, really focusing on infrastructure projects. John Hightower, another landscape architect, he graduated from the University of Georgia, is working with URS, a big Atlanta interdisciplinary architecture and urban design, planning and urban design firm. John was in a series of studios here dealing with stormwater and landscape issues, and that's been one of his major roles in URS in projects around the state and across the country. Marco Garcia is another landscape architect from the University of Florida, and worked for a while in landscape firms and is now a senior urban design in Lord and Sargent, known as LAS. He was a student that went. We had a program in Asia 3 or 4 years ago, and he spent a semester traveling through Shanghai, Beijing, Seoul, and Tokyo to get an understanding of the broader urban design issues in Asia. And he's now back doing a variety of projects in Atlanta and across the Southeast. He has been out of school, I think, 3 years, and now the senior urban designer in LAS, really leading another team. And he's been calling us and saying, where do we have more students to hire? Because he is trying to build a team and keep up with the volume of work that LAS now has. Louis Johnson, another landscape architect, is working with Gresham Smith and Partners in Kentucky. He has been recently the head of the Landscape Architecture Professional Organization in Kentucky, and then in the joint membership between Kentucky and Ohio. He's working largely with landscape operations. The big push of the firm of Gresham Smith is dealing with questions of sustainability, particularly ones of ecological infrastructure. And he's a main player in that organization. Claire Perko, another landscape architect, is working with the city of Marietta and a public agency. And we have several alums that move to gather experience to go first, maybe to a private consulting firm, and then moving on to a public agency, which may be a city government or some associated governmental agency, and then sometimes strike off on their own to form their own firm, or to take that experience and go back to a private consulting firm, knowing how to work with public agencies, which is an important skill and ability to deal with the people who actually hire clients and regulate what projects are done. Jason Combs is a city planning student who graduated here at Georgia Tech in city planning and moved to the Master of Urban Design. He's been working on several projects around the Florida and Georgia coast. He's now based in Savannah and has a branch office in Panama City, Florida, and is doing a lot of work, most of it very advanced work. So it's a project that someone has an idea about and who puts together the idea for the project and begins to strategize sources of funding, and then doing very preliminary design work as a framework to then hire urban design firms to attract developers and so on. David Campbell is an architect from University of Tennessee. He's been working with affordable housing primarily in a variety of situations, dealing with affordable housing on infill basis, on new construction, always dealing with the bigger questions of building performance and sustainability and building new affordable housing. Ryan Radel is a famous guy here in Atlanta and will soon be famous all over the world. His book, Where We Want to Live, was being released tomorrow, I believe, either tomorrow or Thursday. And his thesis project and his Master of Architecture, he did both the Master of Architecture and Master of City Planning at the same time. And this project, which is called The Beltline, was his thesis, which is really reshaping and reimagining what the city of Atlanta is, and has produced thousands of new housing units along the Beltline. The Beltline has become the major public space in Atlanta. What was an original railroad loop around the downtown to reduce train congestion downtown. The railroad loop became obsolete, set vacant, and it was his discovery and proposal to reinvent the infrastructure of Atlanta, the public infrastructure, that has become enormously successful and will be one of the transformative projects, not just in Atlanta, but as an example for the U.S. And the rest of the world. Very much the same kind of importance as the High Line in New York City. And the Promenade Pontet in Paris are similar kinds of transformative projects. Public sector and nonprofits is another area, both for academics. Justin Wallace is working for the City of Nashville, or the Metropolitan Nashville Planning Department, which includes the city, doing a variety of projects, bringing urban design into the public sector, which has been very spotty across the last 20 or 30 years in public agencies. Sometimes public agencies just aren't aware of what urban design does, and that's a growing opportunity and a growing source of jobs for urban designers. Wesley Brown is working in Central Atlanta Progress, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization for downtown Atlanta, and his job spans all over the place, from public presentations to working behind the scenes on projects to try to get them moving, to talking to developers, to try to convince developers to come into downtown Atlanta, and so on. Nathan is a researcher at the Future Cities Lab in Zurich. That's a research organization that's well known all over the world and is growing in importance. Nathan has a city planning degree from Tongji University and then came here for his MSUD. So he's really moving in a direction of research at Zurich, and eventually will go back to China and hopes to do similar things there. Kai is an architect. He's graduated from Tongji University and is working for the design organization allied with Tongji University, doing a variety of projects from major buildings to large urban design projects to the formulation of new city development in China. Okay, there's a lot of things that urban designers do, and one of the things that I always like to say is that urban design is really a platform for which you can do a lot of different things, even if it's just going back and being a great architect or city planner or landscape architect. What do you think, Paul?
Thank you, Richard. Stay here. So we've got, again, a little bit more time to answer questions, to continue to talk a little bit about the program. And, you know, I know we've condensed a lot of information into a short period of time, but I hope we've given you a better sense of kind of what urban design is, what people do with the degree, how it helps their career. As I said at the beginning, we have posted some videos to YouTube and Youku, and it just says MSUD, Georgia Tech. You should be able to find them. And we're getting more and more of them coming in from alumni, so there's more and more information to look at.
One of the things that makes this program interesting and I think unique is two things. One is the relationship among the different programs in the college. So in most cases, and I've even seen this happen certainly in China as well at Tongji, architects and landscape architects and planners don't really talk to each other. Here at Georgia Tech, we talk to each other, and we also have a connection to the University of Georgia, which is about an hour away. So we collaborate. We collaborate not only with our students, but the students collaborate with other students in other fields, which makes this an interdisciplinary school that most schools would like to be. The other is the summer program. Modern architecture in the modern city has been around now for about 20 years, almost 25 now. And instead of doing the traditional summer program where you go from building to building to building to building, we focus on 4 cities, primarily Barcelona, Berlin, Paris, and the Netherlands, Randstad and Holland, Amsterdam, and so on. Those 4 cities spend about 2 weeks in each city. So by the time the end of the summer comes, there's an in-depth knowledge of the history all the way up to contemporary architecture in those 4 cities. And we make a short stop in Copenhagen, where a lot of new stuff, and particularly models of sustainability, are going on. So the advantage of that program is fits into the third semester of the MSUD, and it gives a great opportunity to see the best architecture in the world and some of the most sustainable cities, on the ones that are struggling to be the most sustainable cities in the world.
Yeah, I want to pick up on, it's the importance both of the collaboration that I think is unique at Georgia Tech, and also gets back to the importance of being in places, that seeing how cities work. Most of my work focuses on suburban redevelopment, because suburbia is exactly, the problems of suburbia are exactly the problems of these disciplines not talking to each other. It's, you know, the transportation engineers just optimize the road network, but in fact, once you put in the land uses, it doesn't work. You get all the congestion and all the pollution. If the architects are only thinking about the object building and not how it also creates public space with the landscape architect, you know, you end up with all these lost opportunities. And so most schools do tend to still kind of put everybody into silos. And I think Georgia Tech really we do a pretty good job of bringing together people. I've been really excited with excited this semester because our studio is so future oriented, really with a 25-year window. We're bringing in the engineers who are actually working with Ford on the technology of the driverless cars. We're working with the engineers who are developing the most advanced low-impact development stormwater systems and how to capture the nutrients from those systems to feed them back into loops that then also deal with the energy-water nexus. So, and you know, how we actually succeed in integrating that into a vision for downtown Atlanta is still, that'll be up to Animesh. He's got 6 more weeks to completely figure that out. But it is, I think it's an extremely interdisciplinary and collaborative place. And Atlanta's a good place in which to be doing that as well. And Animesh, anything to add? And
also there is a weekly lecture series here at College of Architecture, which I find really interesting because you get to learn more about the new technologies and the new architecture designs that are actually happening around the world. So I find it very interesting and very informative. So if you like plan to attend here, I really recommend you to attend the lecture series because it will help you a lot in your professional career and also in your academic field.
The studios that we do, are of all kinds, and they range across things that are very practical to things that are very visionary. And the idea behind most urban design studios is to try to figure out in a situation what the issues are and what the problems are that needs to be solved, and then working toward those. So one example, I didn't know this was a crazy studio that's called the Mission Zero Corridor, 16 miles of an interstate highway. And the Ray Anderson Foundation came to us and said, okay, we want to do a sustainable highway. And we say, what? And it turned out to be, the first question to ask was, what do we mean by sustainability? And what do we mean in terms of a highway? And over the process of a semester, we then come to a 16-mile corridor of developing an undeveloped territory, and provide a proposal that is now being implemented, slowly, but being implemented along the 16 miles of highway, including research to do with paving materials that charges batteries of electric cars, to dealing with bioswales and other stormwater issues and water quality issues along the side of the highway. A bridge over the highway that's proposed and students and slowly getting momentum of a wildlife corridor that actually spans and goes over so that wildlife is not separated by this stretch of interstate highway. So whatever the projects are, they're leading edge stuff that asks questions that frequently no one else is asking. And we learn to do that and begin to envision possibilities within the studio. Actually,
Kathy Branham, who Richard showed a little bit of her work, Kathy gave a talk here recently where she described what she really feels how she describes what she does. She says, I'm a futurist. I really have to imagine cities in a form that they don't yet exist. And that power of the imagination, that power of urban design to really help shape and reshape places becomes so important. But we're not only focusing on technology in the future. I mean, I think the reason we go to the European cities, the reason we require history of urban form, is we also want our students to learn from the places that are beloved, that are vibrant, that from history, that have amazing lessons. And ultimately, I mean, the most sustainable building is one that already exists, as long as it's not too energy inefficient. But, you know, preservation, conservation, learning from existing places is also very, very important. And what's interesting about being in Atlanta, I think, is that we are, on the one hand, Atlanta is a really quite a contemporary city. We're evolving. We're certainly known. We have a lot of sprawl, but we have wonderful in-town neighborhoods. The area around Georgia Tech is very, very lively. Downtown needs some love. That's why we're working on it right now this semester. But I think, you know, there's so many different conditions and places where urban design is part of the solution of really helping to make our cities and our cities, our suburbs, our small towns to make our world a better place. So we're pretty excited about it. So I think I don't see any more questions coming up. Would absolutely welcome any of you to contact us at any time. Certainly contact me. But Robin will be in touch with you with more on the logistics. But we're happy to answer any questions that you come up with. And I look forward to meeting you in person. So thank you all very much. You want to say thank you?
Yep, thanks.
Guys as well?
Thanks, and look forward to seeing you at Georgia Tech.
Thank you. I hope you'll come and join at Georgia Tech.